Who is it? So, do you see the slides, breakout session 5?
Yes, perfect.
Excellent. So, yes, so welcome to this, wait a minute, I just removed the figures here. Welcome to our breakout session number 5, which is focusing on the cross-fertilisation between the thematic and the horizontal projects. My name is Andreas Petzold. I am the coordinator of ESFRI Fair, and I'm moderating this session, and Katrin Seemeyer to my left, she's taking notes. And we will run the whole session based on Mentimeter so that we can easily summarize the results. Okay, so next slide is, I will start with a brief introduction and then mention the Mentimeter questions. So please take the link and the code to access the Mentimeter, and then there we will collect the answers. In a small group, it will be short, and then we will discuss the answers and do a final wrap up for the closing session to prepare our summary slide. Okay, so the brief introduction is here that based on the slide, the cluster projects have prepared on their common view of EOSC, where we see the European Open Science Cloud by a E-infrastructure consolidation component, which stands for the E, by the Open Science component, which stands for the O, and by the scientific communities, content and users, which stands for the S and the C. And for these components, we can pick up services in our research infrastructures, or we can provide, of course, resources from our research infrastructures. And this topic is more on the E and on the O part. What do we adapt from the E infrastructures and from the open science aspects? Okay, so in the preparation session, we discussed a few questions which we should ask in this session, and these questions will be asked in all the breakout sessions on that topic. So the first question, so we don't start the discussion, I just go through the questions and then we start the Mentimeter collection of responses. So the first question is on the access to EOSC, and we want to know if you believe that that the research infrastructure should have a universal top-level point of access, like a portal, or do you think that they should have their own entry into the EOSC environment and the services? Next question is on the horizontal services. Here we want to know if your research infrastructure has already federated services from other horizontal projects like AAI and other approaches, or like PID or fairness assessment tools, or do you wait for some coordination, or do you not plan to use services from these horizontal projects? And the next question is on the commercial services. If we want to know if your research infrastructure is planning to use commercial services or services from research providers. And we want to know where it comes from. And yeah, that's the focus on the commercial services. And finally, we have a question on the composability of services, where we want to know if you plan added value products such as data analysis and visualization tools and others, and what do you plan for the future in the EOSC next phase. You will recognize these questions now in the upcoming Mentimeter approach, and then we collect your answers and discuss what you respond. Okay, so this is the 4 questions, and please log into menti.com and enter the PIN, and then you are able to give responses.
I think okay, the PIN is here because we didn't have.
Yeah, you should see it here. Okay, we make a simple test on the next slide. And we want to start with a question of who are you presenting today? Are you from an ESFRI RI, from a cluster, from an EOSC project, E-infrastructures or other? So please respond. And then we see how it works.
I'm from ESFRI Research Infrastructure.
Yep, we see your answer here. Wie viel haben wir? Wie viele sind dabei insgesamt? Wie viele Leute? Okay. So we expect 8 answers, no 6, because Katrin and I do not give answers.
Oh, I need to press this Mentimeter, but I cannot reach it.
You cannot reach Mentimeter. Okay, du kannst aber keine Antwort eingeben, oder? Okay, let's see. Katrin tries to also reach Mentimeter, and then we can give a response on your behalf.
Yes, please. I represent ESFRI Research Infrastructure.
Yeah. So wait a second for Katrin to finish it. Okay, Katrin, ESFRI RI. Yeah, is ESFRI RI, yeah. Okay, you are here. Und dann können wir nochmal für uns eingeben. Nee, warum nicht? Okay, good. So 245, we have still one answer missing. So maybe one person doesn't want to respond. Because we are 8 in the call, correct? Katrin? And okay, good. So please, then we go to the next slide. So is anybody now familiar with the Mentimeter? Also the person who has not responded to this request? Okay, good. Then we switch on to the next slide. So that is the first question when we speak about the access. So we have 3 options here you can answer to is should EOSC have a single top level point of access? So for the RI, so yes is the first option, universal point of access. Then the next answer would be no, research infrastructures can link to certain EOSC pages as they want. And the third level is no, RIs can link to any EOSC page where they want. So please give your responses.
Well, in my opinion, it is the middle one, this pink.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gibst du es ein? Gibst du es ein für ihn, bitte? Er kommt nicht in den Mentimeter. Das mittlere. Okay. Yeah. Good. Okay, that's it. Thank you. It's a nice Gaussian distribution. And we move on to the next question. And that is for the research infrastructures or the projects you are coming from. Which horizontal service would have priority for your research infrastructure? And you see here options. And we speak about priorities. So there are no double mentions possible.
Oh, if you can pick on behalf of me, it is all mentioned services.
Okay, Katrin will do that. All mentioned. Noch weiter unten, nein, da. Yeah. Okay, now we know your answers. It's all recorded.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And we move on to the next one. And this is about the commercial services. Is your research infrastructure planning to use commercial services? For instance, cloud services, cloud computational services, or storage, something like that. What is the actual status in the RI you are coming from?
Not at the moment, in my case.
Okay, yep. Not at the moment. Das erste ganz oben. Oh, that's a nicely even distribution. Okay. Let's move to the next one. And this is in a way that you can put in comments. What would be EOS value-added services for the research communities? What do you think we would need to do? So for that question, if you go to Mentimeter, you are able to simply write down answers or short comments, something like that. So I see no answer coming in. So I have a question to all of you. We made shell. Okay,
sorry,
I see.
It's
first.
too fast. We have no time to type. I am sorry. It takes time.
Okay,
Sorry.
I'm no problem at all.
You should try to type also. Sorry, you would see.
Yeah, that's fine. No, I'm waiting for you. It's really that's good answers.
I managed to start the Mentimeter. Thank you.
That is good. Let me ask Katrin, is it only possible to give one answer? I think so. You can
No.
can give more than one answer if you wish. So please take your time and do more if you have more to add. So please let me know when you are finished or with the multiple answers. Okay, I see that. So if you are still working on answers, is it correct or not? Please respond, then we can go to the next one. I see from François, Ian, and Damien that you are finished. Okay, wen haben wir noch? Wen haben wir denn oben noch? Tonic? Tonji, are you working on answers?
No.
Okay, good. Then let me move on to the last slide. So the last question, oops. Na komm, wieso geht es jetzt hier nicht weiter? Ich kann hier nicht. Ja. Da geht gar nichts mehr. Kannst du weiterschalten? We just struggle with switching to the next slide. Now I'm there. Okay. That is, we want to have your quick answer on what would be the role of the EOSC Association in your opinion. Again, multiple answers are possible. Again, please let me know when you are done.
I completed my part.
Thank you. Yeah, it's an interesting set of answers. So I think that's pretty good. Yeah. And it reflects the fact that the role of the EOSC Association is not really clear. Okay. Is there anybody still typing? If not, I would like to go back to the answers and discuss a bit on the outcome of your poll. So if I don't hear in the next minute that somebody still works on an answer, I will switch back to the slide on the horizontal services.
Can I make a comment while we are waiting for the answer, please?
Yes, please.
I think that we get interesting answers. I agree with you. I think that you, to say the truth, it's not statistically representative of anything. And I would feel good if you say it when you do the report. It's just a comment.
No, for sure, I would report that we are a very small group, sure. So that, but I think honestly, the advantage of a small group is that people are more responding.
No, I agree, but it's. I'm sorry for the comment, but well.
No, you are completely right. We are not a statistically, let's say, broadly based ensemble here. Okay, so then let me go back to the, let's see how it works, to the slide with the answers. Okay, so here we are. I take this as a clear, let's say, answer of all of the people represented in our small group, that we think that the RIs should have access to EOSC or should be connected to EOSC via certain pages, like a for the ENVI community, we plan for the ENVI hub or for other interfaces. Is this a correct interpretation? If not, please speak against me and we can briefly discuss. We have time to discuss each set of answers briefly, but let me know if this impression is wrong.
Well, it's certainly my impression. I mean, I think that the idea of a universal point of access doesn't really make much sense unless you're really just a completely independent researcher who has no connection to any of the RIs and you're looking for something.
Yep.
Yes, I think that I am not sure at this stage if we know the pages we will need to access, because we have not a good idea of what will be even the minimal core. So to limit the pages we want to access to worries me. I was the person who was on the open side.
You mean the blue one, so to say?
The red one.
Sorry, yeah.
But we can access to anything we need.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think there's. I'm not sure what any of this really means in terms of how people will use the EOSC in the end. I think we shouldn't be restrictive.
I think that when it's said there is one point of access, it's very meaningful. There are people who want to open one point of access. And so I think that the thing on the left is as a real meaning. And I have the impression the majority of us want something more open, as you say.
I mean, just to translate it, so as I can simply refer to the discussion we have in ENVI Fair, is that we want to access EOSC via the ENVI hub, and that at the end will be exposed to EOSC on the EOSC portal. So that would be the meaning of the yes answer, so that we have only the EOSC portal as the access of research infrastructures to the EOSC environment. On the middle section would mean that EOSC offers the portal and something else like the marketplace or some more specific sites as well to allow access or to give research infrastructures access to the EOSC environment. And the right answer is the research infrastructures can do what they want.
I had a comment as well. Hello, it's Paul Fingers here from the FNS community. And I went to the blue box because I think it would be good to try and encourage cross-domain or cross-research infrastructure dialogue and connections, rather than siloing each infrastructure in a box. So that was my thinking. It might be wrong, but I just think we don't want to create silos of each domain.
Yep.
But I think you can have a universal point of access, but it shouldn't just be restricted to that.
Okay, that would make sense. Yeah.
Yes, because it's not encouraging people to go together, it's obliging people to go together.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I am not sure this will encourage uptake of the system.
Mm-hmm. Good.
No,
No, I think that's we would summarize it in a way that the majority of our group thinks that the best way to access EOSC by the research infrastructures is to either to one gate or to really certain pages, but to avoid silos when we go to certain separate pages. Going through the portal would be the preferred way to avoid the silos which we are already sitting in. Is this a proper summary?
Yes, this is the proper summary, and this is the most flexible approach we can offer at this moment. You know, perhaps in a couple of years we will go to the more wider access, but at this moment this is the most flexible way.
Okay.
I am sorry, I have a problem if we are driven by the capacity. I think we were trying to set up requirements.
I don't speak about capacities. No, the capacity is not an issue. It's more the philosophy of how to give access. And I find the argument with not going back into silos a very relevant one. And the requirements are then to allow either the central point of access or the certain EOSC pages which we can use. So the flexibility both.
I think, from my point of view, the most flexible is to allow people to access anything. Yes,
I
have
agree.
a top level, yes, have an RI level, but people should be free to access whatever they need.
I agree with that.
Yeah, people, sure, but we speak about the research infrastructures.
But
yes, please.
yeah, but what does it? I don't know what you mean then in that sense, because the research infrastructures in the end are people trying to do work.
Sure, yeah, that's correct. The question here is, as I said, it's yeah, maybe not very elegant formulated what we got. It's is it the EOS portal as the one and only point, or do we allow more flexibility for research infrastructures to access the EOS universe? So that is a question. And following the discussion, we all prefer the more flexible solution and don't want to be forced into one single solution. That's probably a good summary.
So what we for certain, I think, don't want is, or don't see as a need is that our people who are going to a central portal to find out about EOSC services and access that to that central portal or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't think it will work like that.
Okay. Let me move on at least to the next question, that we have a few opinions on from you on that on the next one, because this is a question which gives rise to the requirements definition for the mostly needed services. So basically, it looks like the current research infrastructures which you are in, they request support on technical services like AAI and PID at the most. And I can only say here that this is also an outcome from the position papers, the 5 clusters as formulated. So can we see this as a statement from our group that we expect from EOSC federated core services, for instance, strong support of our RIs in AAI and PIDs at the first?
Yes.
Okay, good. Then we take this to the summary note. And yeah, so with the commercial services, that is to me a clear expression of the fact that this is kind of ambiguous, because nobody has yet a clue what that will mean. Is this a proper summary?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, please.
I think this is more giving feel that the research infrastructures are very different and apparently have different needs there.
Yes, that's a proper view on that. Yes,
but we are a very small group, so it's
correct. Yeah.
dangerous to conclude anything about about that here.
So we take this mainly as the expression of the diversity of research infrastructures.
Yeah, and their models,
Yeah.
operating models.
Mm-hmm. That makes
Okay.
that creates this even distribution. It services for the research communities. So I take we simply summarize that up. So is there anything you want to comment on that, or you want to discuss? I leave the floor to you. Or is there any kind of prioritization? Because, do you see any priorities?
I have the impression it's linked also to the situation, to the specific situation of a community.
Mm-hmm.
So it's again somehow diverse, probably. And I like the answer saying it's too early to decide.
Yeah, my question here would be, what means FNS community?
So we have a new community, food and nutrition security. So we started about a year ago. So we're a Horizon 2020 project. But a lot of our outputs are linked to EOS. So we have to prepare the community and the data and everything. So we're just trying to get our head around what we might have to offer in terms of services or, you know, other outputs. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense, because it reflects also the situation we have in the environmental research infrastructure communities that, and I follow here also François, it's too early for us to finally decide. So this will be something we can deliver at the end of the projects, I think.
So we have an interaction with Elixir where nutrition and health overlap. So we're doing something around the microbiome data and the gut health, where we have an interest in FNS, and Elixir are coming from the health side. So that's our first, you know, link up with research infrastructure.
Yep. Okay.
I have one question about appear as EOSC service. Is that about branding or about discoverability? Is it about using EOSC as a brand, as a kind of a trust brand for the services? Or is this about finding these services?
This question goes to the person who has put this comment on the screen. So would please. Okay. So I think I'm not sure if we can. Yeah, that's a bit of a vague answer, because it's not really connected to one of the things before, and I cannot really interpret it. But we leave it here.
So for me, maybe I should add this then. For me, potentially branding is a value-added service. I can imagine that our national funders in the future will say, well, is this an EOSC service or not? If it is, then we fund it, and if not, then not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I understand. So we have our own discussion in the ENVI community that one concern is that we do not want to see everything from our side showing up as EOSC service as branded as an EOSC service. So we want to have our visibility. We want to keep our visibility of the service providers and service creators. So that's would be my comment to this statement here. Okay. So anything else? Because let me see. No, we are on the last song. I would move on to the last one here because we have to move back into the room for the report. Is this something, do we want to have a discussion on the answer here? So if you feel the need to comment, please do that now. In the meantime, we would send our conclusions slide to the presenters in the last 5 minutes, in the last 15 minutes.
I have a comment, Andreas.
Yes, please.
So I was the one that wrote represent views and concerns of the stakeholders, and then there's a lower comment saying the association represents the members, not the stakeholders, and that's true. And so I correct what I said, but I'm certainly concerned about how the stakeholders and the RIs get their views and concerns across. So to me, the association needs to be the framework within which not just the members, but the stakeholders are represented as well. And I personally feel that having separate independent bodies for those things is the wrong thing. I think the members and the stakeholders ought to be together at some point for some of those things.
And can I add a comment on that?
Sure.
I've run an ASBL for 10 years, and it's to do with the ASL statutes and how they operate in Belgium, because generally you would have your membership and you have your General Assembly, and they make the decisions and do the voting. But most associations have external advisory boards, which are made up of users, other stakeholders, policy people. So they have a voice, but they don't.
Yeah, but I think that's completely the wrong model. Having the users as an external advice is not good enough.
Well, I think if you wanted to have users within the ASBL, they would have to be members.
Yeah, well, then I'd stick by my original comment. So
Yeah,
they have to be, they are stakeholders, so they have to be members.
Well, there's a difference, as you know, user stakeholder, there's a slight difference, but generally to have a vote, you need to be a member, and that's set out in the statutes, because you can have different levels of members.
Well, so the RIs are becoming members where they are legal entities, and then the ones that are not legal entities are being represented by institutes or. Yeah,
so the question I would have is, would an RI have the same number of votes as an member?
Yeah, that's a different discussion.
That's difficult. If it brings 100 researchers, then it should have more voting.
Yeah, that's indeed. I know from our AISBL, Jagos is also organized as an AISBL. That's a tricky thing then, how to balance the number of votes and in light of the group each member is representing.
What was said yesterday is that it's one vote, one member. Yeah. It was said very clearly yesterday.
Yes.
If someone is paying 10,000 euros and someone is paying 2,000, the obvious thing is that the 10,000 member has four times the votes as the 2,000.
If you look at the current potential members, then you see the majority is universities, and I think the RIs will not be a majority because RIs as universities. And that if there's a one-to-one vote, that worries me a little.
It's quite hard to keep individual universities as members in associations because they don't necessarily see the value.
But they are there at the moment.
Yeah, we have 150 members in ours, and
I don't know how useful it is to be there as a university, but they are there.
Yeah, we have probably more departments or schools within a university that are members in the subject area rather than the whole university. But that's another point for discussion.
Just please continue discussing. I suggested I stop sharing the screen and work over these over our reporting slide here. Is this okay with you? Just to wrap up our comments to the questions. So saying, I want to highlight a bit rephrasing that the access that we ask for a most flexible access from RIs to EOSC. That's to rephrase a bit the horizontal services. So we see a wide spread of answers because of the various main on AII and then on PIDs reflecting the current needs of the requests. Then we see the broad response from the commercial services saying this reflects the diversity in the RI landscape, and we have then a collection of answers on the composability of services, the Eos Association, which I will work into the text now to give it to transport it properly to the full audience. Yes,
sorry,
sorry, I think it's important that you say we are all worried about the representation of stakeholders in the association.
I was just going to say that, yeah.
Sorry, again, say again that we put it properly.
But in the EOSC Association, you can say several or many or all of us worry about the representation of stakeholders, the sufficient representation of a wide range of stakeholders in the association, or how, if it's not in the association, because we have spent all the time discussing that.
Yes, so you like it's phrased now.
Yes, you can add the other things, of course.
No, but that was the main driver. I think that was really the main driver on the differentiation between stakeholders and users, and that's
and members.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, between members and stakeholders. That's not yet clear. Yeah, I need to rephrase that a bit. Okay, I will just switch off the screen sharing, and we can go back to the plenary room, and then
please, Andreas.
Yes,
it's Tassos. All rooms are going to close at exactly 3 o'clock, so you still have time.
Oh,
and please do not move. I've sent you a message on the chat, but probably it was difficult to see. Please remain in this room. We will bring you back to the main room all together, because if you leave now, you will leave the meeting altogether. So just wait here, and you can continue discussing. We will move you back for the last quarter of this session that you will present the summary. Every moderator will present for 2 minutes. So I guess it's you, Andreas, presenting, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. So please remain here.
Okay, will do. Thank you for this alert. Okay, so we can continue discussing while I'm typing. So.
Yes, I just have a comment about the fairness horizontal services. We are looking about at the metrics for FAIR in the EOSC FAIR working group. And for the moment, I think that what we will say is that there is no solution now to have an automated assessment of fairness in the current situation with EOSC in mind. So it's just a comment because person was willing to have it. I would like to put a brake, when the car is going too fast. I am tempted to brake strongly, to say that we have to understand better what it means to measure fairness in general and to measure fairness in EOSC in particular.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. So the access part, is this now reflecting better what we discussed?
Okay with me.
Okay. So commercial services, I would rephrase that diversity in answers, answers reflecting the diversity of the different natures of our eyes, different nature. Okay, I have to see if I can copy the answers in. So, Katrin, what was this for the commercial services? What were the answers, please? Ja, kannst du bitte noch mal das Ding Mentimeter aufmachen? Zurück. Okay, we just wait for the to get it clear. So because we had for that question, we had three answers with the same number of responses. Nee, next one, commercial services. Next one. Okay, no was one, and use from existing providers. Procure own services. Equal answers. These were equal answers. 2. Okay. Was ist das langsam? Warum ist denn der so langsam? Okay. So for the composability, I want to see also the Mentimeter, please. Nee, oben, du musst doch nur oben eins rübergehen. So from there, or we call it, that's probably not composability, that's what we call added value services. So we just collected here the security coordination, cloud computing, and ja, warte mal, ich muss hier noch tippen. Cloud computing, virtual research environments. So for the FAIR data framework, François, is your comment related to this point here, or?
I am not sure. I was saying that we would like, I answered that we have a FAIR data framework, not that EOSC will provide a FAIR data framework.
Yeah.
So we have a FAIR data framework, but we want to use EOSC resources.
Yeah.
So it's interfacing existing systems to use the resources. And for us, the FAIR data framework is certainly not provided by EOSC.
So just to get it right, the fair data framework needs to be provided by EOSC.
No, it's the contrary in our case. But maybe someone else said that they want to, for cross-disciplinary purposes, they want a fair data framework provided by EOSC because it can be a requirement for some people. But for us, it's not the case because we already have a fair data framework.
In the research infrastructures, there is.
It's already, there is a network among the research infrastructures which allow them to exchange data, interoperability. Well,
Okay.
with interoperability and all the rest of it. So this exists already.
Good. Damien, you are in the call here from Jago. So can we say from our side, just to make it clear in my mind, that the fair data framework needs to be implemented at research infrastructure or cluster level, not on EOSC level? Is this correct?
Yes, it's more on cluster level. Yeah.
But we are asking for an interface to EOSC.
Yes, we need to implement interoperability between the cluster and EOSC. Yeah.
Same with us.
Ah, now we got it, because I think this is a really relevant point, that we the fair data framework is at cluster level, but interface to EOSC is needed for interoperability.
No, not in our case, not for interoperability. It's needed to use EOSC services in our case.
Okay.
So I think there is I think interface to EOSC is needed in general for everybody. But interoperability can be provided.
It's a two-way interface from EOSC to cluster and from cluster to EOSC.
Yeah. And it's one of the reasons for having a flexible capacity to interface with EOSC in the previous. The flexibility on access is linked to that in our case.
Highest flexibility in EOSC access. So this goes together, yes.
Yes.
Now, I think that is the most important point. So I would kind of rearrange the order here. Sorry? There was one voice in the background.
So that was from my office. So we have the breakout rooms are going to close in 30 seconds. So.
Okay, but I think we are almost through. And the EOS, the last part on the EOS Association, that is, I just move it up. I have to do the fine tuning afterwards. So we report here that our overall opinion is that the worry about the representation of stakeholders, and we require a differentiation between members and stakeholders. Is it this the proper summary? No answer. Okay, then I take it as a proper summary. Good. I thank you all for the discussion. So it was a bit of an unexpected small group, but I think nevertheless I hope we can contribute something to the overall report. So thanks a lot. These slides are kept and will be added to the report of the workshop. Thank you so much, and please go back to the main meeting.
Please do not move yet, or just press the leave breakout room button, not the leave room button.
Yeah, the breakout, this one here, the breakout session, leaving the breakout session, that's the button to press.
Kostas and Per, we should have all of the breakout rooms closed now and participants return to the main session.
Victoria,
Yes.
you asked me to do something.
I am just looking at my agenda. We are now looking to move to the summary of the key points from each of the breakout sessions.
I am there, no?
Yes, yes.
I have left my room.
Yes, that's right. Yes, so now we just move to take the summaries from each of the session moderators before this.
Okay, you mean I should start? I should say something?
You are welcome to invite the first breakout session, which was chaired.
Yeah, okay, so I'm live. I thought that you are speaking to me privately.
No, okay. Sorry. Yes, you're live.
Yeah, okay. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Kostas Glinos with my coach, Per Oster, I think, right, Per? We have this short session with two breakouts. The first one that I was in, the moderator was Niklas Bloomberg. And Niklas, could you please make the summary?
Thanks, Kostas. Yeah, happy to. So I was in one of the breakouts on cross-disciplinary working and cultural change for fair data sharing. So it was a very nice cross-disciplinary panel. So we had representation from chemistry, engineering, social science, life sciences, and a few policymakers in the room. So that was very interesting. The different communities have quite different perspectives. So I thought that was an interesting notion. So in some communities, and we had good examples where the data may be what we could call fair, but the term fair isn't really used, but there is a lot of good metadata annotation and accessibility of the data where the community is putting the data out for reuse. It was pointed out that in many communities, good sort of data standards are missing, and that makes it very, very difficult, of course, for people to annotate and publish the data in a reusable form. We had a discussion on the value of FAIR, and it was a really nice example from Australia. So thanks for staying up in the middle of the night, Rosie. During COVID, where the National Microscopy Facility had pushed out a lot of FAIR data to the community now during the strict lockdowns, enabling scientists who can't go to the lab to still work on methods development and data mining tasks. So that was quite nice. And in general, we had a good discussion about the importance of also demonstrating reuse. I think we had a good phrase from Carlos about not only doing sort of community enlightenment and preaching the value of FAIR, but as also shift to the actual implementations and demonstrate the value. We talked quite a bit about FAIR versus open, and there was a really important statement, I think, from Kostas, so thanks for that, on that publicly funded data should remain open for community reuse. It's noted that sometimes is perceived as a conflict with intellectual property in some communities, and that can be a cultural barrier and something we need to work with. There was also an interesting notion that in some cases this is used to essentially game the system, and so there's been some carefulness in rolling out policies to avoid people gaming the grant system. And it was also noted that the word fair is really very helpful in, especially maybe in health and medical communities, where the word open is seen as being in conflict with secure, and then having a conversation around fair data allows you to have a much more constructive debate about reuse and secondary use of the data. In terms of actions, I think training and incentives were noted as the most important ones. And training, we had several good examples, just recognizing that in many communities, the sort of digital literacy may not be that high, and therefore people do struggle to engage with data management tools and with the data resources. And so that will be something important to address in the coming years. So that's a brief summary. Thank you very much.
Per, would you like to introduce the second speaker? The second moderator?
Okay, yes, maybe we move to the, we had also breakout groups on thematic clusters, research infrastructures and tools, federation and uptake, federated e-infrastructure and resource uptake. Were actually 3 breakout rooms, but let's start with Andreas Petzold, who was moderator, or if it's Katrin Seemeyer, who was note taker there.
That's me, Andreas, speaking. I served as a moderator. So thank you, Per. Surprisingly, we were a quite small group. We had only 6 participants plus the moderator and the note taker. Nevertheless, we discussed along the lines of the questions we decided beforehand to speak about access to EOSC, adaptation of horizontal services and commercial services, and then asking for the opinion of added value services and the feeling about the Eos Association. So our session was run based on Mentimeter. So the poll results will be made available in the summary of the workshop here. But to start first with, we had representatives from ESFRI Research Infrastructures and the ESFRI cluster. But we had also members who didn't, let's say, rate them as one of those, neither ESFRI RI or no cluster, no EOS project, no infrastructure. So a very broad participation. So the answers we got from on our various questions, they reflect the thinking of the various RIs. So the first question was on the access models to EOSC, what is expected from by the research infrastructures, and the answer clearly says here that the majority is expecting access with highest flexibility. So access models with highest flexibility are expected. And there is certainly no preference for a single point access. So that means the research infrastructures should be in a position to decide on their own how they want to make use of EOSC. And the main other point is that there is no restriction expected. That means more highest flexibility on our side. That was a clear outcome. Then we asked for the horizontal services, how they are planned to be adopted from the horizontal projects or from the federated core services. And it was very clear that AAI has highest priority. And the next priority are persistent identifiers. And these answers are in close agreement with what we have put together in the cluster position statement papers a while ago, where exactly AAI and PID issues were rated of highest relevance. For the commercial services, we asked about the if there are plans to adopt commercial services, to use them for existing providers or to procure own services, and the answers were equally distributed. And we discussed briefly what that answer tells us, and the opinion is that this, let's say, an ambiguity reflects the diversity of research infrastructure needs. So there is no clear direction into that. Then an interesting collection of answers on the added value services we expect from EOSC. So one common statement is it's too early now to identify that clearly, and I think that's true for most of our projects. We need to develop and know better our needs so that we can request added value services. Then we had a discussion on the fair data framework. What does it mean and where it needs to be positioned? And the result is that the fair data framework needs to be implemented at cluster level or below, or at a research infrastructure level, but we need an interface to EOSC to use the services. So that is a kind of split of responsibilities. So fairness needs to be handled by the RIs, and but we need the EOSC interface to use EOSC services here. And besides that, RIs expect security coordination, access to cloud computing and virtual research environments, and tender and license frameworks, and especially a coordination of policies and decisions. That is expected from the RIs. Finally, we discussed briefly the role of the EOSC Association, what people see, what that should be, and there were different aspects of what it could be, but a fair summary here is that all research infrastructures worry about the representation of stakeholders, and we recognize the confusion between members and stakeholders. What are their roles and what are their rights, and how all that how will that be set up? So that seems to us that more communication is needed from the EOSC Association to kind of better explain their also the advantages the RIs will have if they join them. So much from our side. Per, you are muted.
No, I'm not muted. You can hear me.
Yes, now.
So thank you very much, Andreas. Now I must turn to the organizers here, because we are now eating. We already spent our break on this, if I'm right. But should we continue with this wrap up of the sessions here?
Yes, you should continue with reporting on all the sessions, please.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Then we go on. So next in the list, then we continue here. We have I've agreed with Kostas here that we just go through the list here now. So we had another group on the thematic cluster, our research infrastructure, data and tools, federation and uptake. So I turned to Ron Decker, who was taking notes there and I was also myself in that group actually.
Yes, thank you, Per. And I will share my screen to share the conclusion. But like Andreas, we did first the Mentimeter, the questions, and then it turned out that the last question, what is EOS, triggered most attention. The results of the Mentimeter will be shared. Ivana has the results. I can briefly say that, again, AAI, PID were on top. In the commercial services, we had a definition problem because we need to realize that even open tools are built on some commercial services. So we have to find out what we mean with this. The main discussion was about EOSC and the association as a facilitator to make the assets that are available at research infrastructures and e-infrastructures to make these assets available. And it should be noted that it's not black and white. It's not that RIs have all the data. They also have computing and storage facilities. And the same goes for e-infra. They also have the expertise on IP, on ownership, on training. So, and our conclusion was in a way that, yes, we are at the beginning of EOSC. There is a tendency to go into all kinds of definition discussions, but rather we would start the cooperation. And with the complexity of having observers, members, and even mandated organizations, I think the advice would be to start this cooperation and to invest in what is called the Stakeholders Forum, where everyone who wants to join the discussion and the cooperation on EOSC can join. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ron. And then we go into the third group of this theme, where we had Tiziana Ferrari was moderator and Gergely Sipos note taker. So I turn to you, what you could add to this theme.
Hello, Per.
Hello.
Kostas, can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Okay.
See the slide.
So our breakout session had a nice group with mixed composition with the national and international e-infrastructure representatives, and also good representation of research infrastructures from different scientific domains, as well as one Aero Forum organization. We didn't cover all the questions. A part of these, this slide summarizes some of the key points emerging from the discussion. The first point, which is perhaps in contradiction to what was reported in another by another rapporteur just a moment ago, is that the coordinated access to research data is key. So how this is implemented in a pragmatic way has to be defined for EOSC, but this is a key functionality that EOSC should facilitate. In addition to research objects and data, training and support are both required to have a broad uptake of resources and services, and especially interdisciplinary and cross-community users will require this in order to make effective usage of EOSC. It was noted that the cluster projects are important structures that are already coordinating and facilitating uptake of infrastructure services by sharing best practices, leaving the freedom to research infrastructures to adopt the components that are most suitable to their provisioning. And this cluster project structure is becoming an important coordination element of the EOSC landscape. Existing computing federations, which are bridging heterogeneous capacities, HPC, HTC, and cloud are all important and complementary. And it was pointed out how cloud adoption also by large infrastructures that already are fully equipped with large data repositories and computing capabilities is proving useful to deliver on-demand access to data. It was pointed out by one of our members that the integrated provisioning of data, software, and physical resources is important to make access to this easy for the user. And together with these, also coordinated allocation of resources and related access policies is key. This is still a point that needs to be addressed systematically in EOSC as part of the business models and sustainability, but is becoming increasingly important to ensure successful EOSC. Finally, we have looked into the thematic services, so the complementary part of data, which is an important asset of research infrastructures, which is data analytics, simulation tools, and the scientific software that is developed by researchers for researchers, are also an important component of EOSC to facilitate access to the data and ensure ease of use. And I hope that with these points, we have well summarized all the major messages. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Tiziana. So then we go back to the theme of open science and fair data sharing within and across domains, policies towards a culture change and work skills. So we already heard one group from here, but now we have a group that with Sverker Holmgren and Ari Asme. So that was moderating and taking notes.
Yeah, thank you, Per. I'm the last one, right?
It's one more to go, actually.
One more to go. I'll try to be very brief anyway.
Yeah,
in the interest of time. So we had an interesting panel with an interesting set of people representing research infrastructures from a wide span of domains, so social sciences, humanities, life science, and also classical physical sciences with astronomy. So it was an interesting discussion. As I said, we started by talking about different aspects of using open data, having collaboration across domains, and there were some interesting examples of where this is done and where there is actually scientific progress made, new scientific progress made because of this sharing across domains. Maybe it was not like huge span of domains where the data sharing was done, but still it was good to see some real examples. Then we talked about the notion of open and fair, and very much like what Niklas was describing earlier, we said that the notion of fair is probably easier to discuss among scientists and researchers. There it is clear that this idea of as open as possible, as closed as necessary is important. And there was some arguments that one should really stress also the second part of this. So as closed as necessary is important. There could be security aspects, there could of course be aspects of personal data, etc. that needs to be catered for in the FAIR concept. Then we turned a bit towards skills development and training, and that was an interesting discussion as such. It was clear, I think, that two aspects of this skills development are very important. One is the education, the training of younger researchers, PhD students, those that will carry research further in a few years. And they should really learn about the FAIR concepts, about open science, different aspects of that. And then there was another notion of training, and that was for facility managers and managers of research infrastructures. There it was also clearly identified that there is a need of training, maybe not only with FAIR aspects and data aspects, but in general. And this is perhaps coming, but might be a missing thing in the current ecosystem. So I think I will stop there.
Okay, thank you very much, Serker. Then we move on to the last group, which was with Patrick Furman and Sophie Savant as moderator and note taker. So please.
Right. Okay. Thanks. I cannot enable my camera, can I? No, I can't. Doesn't matter. Good. So we had an, oh no, hang on a second. Now I got this picture here. So we get a very bad weather, so therefore I'm getting dark now. The thunderstorm is coming. Okay, sorry for that. Because we had a very small group, therefore we didn't use this survey mechanism. It didn't make sense for us, and we as well. We had a variety of communities. So it started from the biggest project which probably currently exists, from the SKA to cultural science. In this particular case, it was tapestry. So you can imagine that the opinions differed a little bit. However, there was one very, very interesting remark, which I thought is worth mentioning particularly. It is that if we are serious with FAIR and with the automatic detection of data and interoperability, then possibly AI would help us to benefit from cross-domain FAIR data, because AI would then probably find what we think have in common and may come up with results scientists would not be able to see. And another remark was that maybe ICT people can help, because the domain scientists are really focused on their domain. And very often ICT people, if they're at a lab where are various communities at the same time, could help building bridges here. A positive example of cross-domain FAIR data could be the IPCC climate change report, because this really depends on so many different inputs. That was a very good remark. For the social sciences and humanities, there is a certain lack of overarching metadata frameworks. Oh, there's really everyone is working by him or herself. There is no share of data in the small teams. And the teams are very geographically distributed. There is something like schema.org, but Daria and Clarina are probably using different schemas. There's a remark on the ownership of data. So FAIR or not FAIR, it depends a little bit on who owns the data. It's difficult for photon and neutron, because we have so many different groups coming to the facilities and leaving again. So we have hardly any influence, which is different for example, IceCAC 3D, where we had a representative. They own the data, so they can impose certain FAIR principles here. And there was the remark that in order to facilitate more fairness, people have to understand that the number of publications is of course increasing for your facility if you make the data available to other domains. It's a little bit of a hope in here, but I think it's justified. There was what is the cost? There was the remark that people have to understand that there is a certain cost of having not fair data. This is often forgotten. You only see, you make it fair, it's costly, but did ever someone look into the possibility not to make it fair and data is going lost? And then the last remark is there are expectations from us to the EC to help us. So tools could be made available, tools could be technical or rewards and incentives to make data fair. We would expect a little bit more support. Then there was the discussion on whether or not fair would automatically happen if the data is needed by someone who can make money from it. So for example, the German Weather Service provides a standard API for all their data. And this is then automatically fair, so to say, because it can be reused, it can be accessed, it's really, and it is used, but only because people can make money of it, because the German Weather Service is not allowed to sell it. They only are supposed to create the API. Good. However, we found that, for example, for the example Tapestry, we have some doubts that that would fund itself by making an API available to those objects. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that was my summary.
Thank you very much. And now I turn to the organizers here, maybe can give instructions what we do next. I think we are going to move over to the webinar mode.
Yes, please. Thanks, Per. If I could just ask a favor for everyone to just switch on their cameras for a group photograph, that would be brilliant. And then, yes, if we could swiftly move over to the webinar as soon as we get the okay from my colleagues at Athena. So Tassos, we'll await an okay from you.
Just give us a few seconds.
I am not allowed to do that.
Me neither. Can't switch on the video.
Thanks both. Yanis, if you could turn on the videos where possible.
I think we reached a number of video links.
We are ready. Thank you.
Can you
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tassos.
My camera was not enabled.
Sorry, who's who said that?
That was Patrick. Now it's working. Now suddenly it's working.
Oh,
it's
working.
Thank you.
I think it might be a limit how many video streams you can have. Yeah.
Maybe don't worry, we will make that happen.
Thank you. So I'd invite you all to go back to the webinar session. My colleagues have pasted the link in the chat and we will see you there in a moment. Thank you.